Thank you, Mr. Chair. My thoughts on this area, particularly from a business perspective, but political too, have evolved. I've spoken with Senator Glazier about this quite a bit. He had a bill in the Senate, and we had lots of conversations about it. My first reaction was one of fundamental concern, where we would have the entity that the news media is supposed to objectively and aggressively hold accountable being their savior. That's got to cause some concern. But it's more than that. The news industry has been going through a significant consolidation even before the problems that we're experiencing currently. Groups formed, small groups became large groups, and some of those decisions weren't very good. And some of the economic dynamics of the resulting consolidated entities began to collapse because of the weight of debt and the like that they acquired. Then we have the dynamic that has come about recently. And the industry and everything is changing drastically. And certainly the internet is some of it, but that's not all of it. There's a significant change in behavior of consumers, as well as the offerings in the marketplace. And which one is the chicken and which one is the egg, I don't know. But people are getting their news in non-traditional ways, defining newspapers as traditional, or the traditional broadcast entities, which are really not talking about here, but in the print news. And I don't mean just TikTok. That's sort of joked about. I don't doubt that there are some people that get their news from TikTok, and I sincerely feel sorry for those people. But there's a plethora of high-quality podcasts that are both news reporting as well as opinion. And some of them are a little crazy, but that's what happens in a marketplace when you have a lot of offerings. There are very quality online newsletters, which are subscription vehicles. One that I know of is the Dispatch, which is sort of a right-leaning newspaper. There are left-leaning also, but their editorial is right-leaning, not drastically so, but it is an objective reporting of the news each and every day, plus other publications as part of that give other takes on what's going on, economic and otherwise. And then there's the relatively new model of essentially a newspaper online like Cal Matters, the funding of which comes largely from foundations, but from individuals also. That kind of model didn't exist before, and it's pretty successful. And the fact of the matter is, very few youngsters, to me, under 50, even pick up a physical newspaper. That's caused, that dynamic in and of itself has caused a lot of trouble for newspapers. It's not just the lack of advertising, although that's certainly part of it. But when you have a consolidation like that, and the consolidation that creates some economic problems for those that may be consolidated in an unhealthy way, you have other investment companies that swoop in and take those entities over, not for the objective of the mission of the companies they're acquiring, that is reporting the news, but to make money. And I don't fault that. I am a shameless capitalist myself, but they swoop in for that reason. And as was stated, over 50% of newspapers, daily newspapers in America, are owned by hedge funds and individual investors. So I have to parenthetically say, who are we helping here? But that is a significant part of the dynamic also. And it was mentioned that a lot of smaller neighborhood newspapers have gone out of business, and maybe they have, but I don't see that here. In Sacramento, we have Gold Country Media, which has consolidated itself. It's bigger than it used to be because it's acquired some newspapers that were previously independent, but it's, my understanding is, reasonably healthy. We have the Messenger Publishing Group out of Rancho Cordova, which is a group of neighborhood newspapers. We have Inside Sacramento, which publishes neighborhood news in Land Park and Arden Park and other areas like that. They seem also to be doing reasonably well. The Sacramento Observer. In fact, I talked with one of the owners of those groups, and he's adamantly opposed to this legislation, interestingly. But beyond that, there's the old, if the bill passes as it is, and I realize you're working on it, and that's good, but there's the old unintended consequence. And the thing is, the bill seems to assume that the platforms will just simply comply and not change their behavior. But as we've seen in other attempts in Europe, Australia, and more closely Canada, a dynamic analysis suggests that they don't necessarily just comply and their behavior changes. And then I'm not endorsing that in any way, but once you pass legislation and it impacts the marketplace, you can't control how the marketplace reacts to it. And that's one of the significant concerns I'd have also. So if there's a question in there, I'd welcome reaction to my comments.
Yeah, well, here's the question. Please explain.